The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max, Smackdown, Review.
Hi, everybody. Remember me? Good evening and welcome to the Wrestling to the Max Smackdown live review for May 29th, 2018. I am your host. My name is Harry Broadhurst. I'm back.
Damn it, Liz, we can't get away from him.
Whatever.
After missing the last 2 weeks due to being out of state to work for IWA Mid-South, if you are interested in listening to me do so, Prelude to Death and the King of the Death matches 2018 are available on smartmarkvideo.com.
Cheap plug.
Cheap plug for the show. Yeah, this would be the part where you'd steal my line and go, shoo!
Pretty much.
The voice that you're hearing is the Mr. Ranger to my Yogi, Brandon Biskobing.
How dare you? I'm not a square like Mr. Ranger.
And, of course, the lady voice that you heard a little... Okay, lady might be...
Oh, Harry, I will hang up this damn thing right now. If you go any further with that.
That is the co-hostess with the mostest, Miss Liz Pugliese. I'm kidding, Liz.
Hello.
Yeah, about last week. I was out of state, so you can't blame me for that one.
Nope. That was on Liz. She had a family issue.
Yeah, Liz had a death.
Yes.
Liz had a death in the family.
I'm very sorry that a death in my family kept you all from not listening to us.
Liz had a... It's not funny, Brandon. Liz
You
had a
two
death in the
are
family.
horrible. Oh my God.
I know. I'm trying to send my condolences here if Brandon would quit laughing.
Thank you.
No, I was just laughing at how she was being sarcastic about saying that she's sorry that they couldn't listen to us last week.
But we are back in your ear holes for your listening pleasure this Tuesday evening or Wednesday morning, whenever you listen to these, assuming you listen to these. We're not sure that you do at this point. And if you have, and this is your first one, well, thanks for giving us a shot. All right, with that being said, what do you say we kick off some of the rust and get back into this SmackDown Live review, shall we?
Let's do it.
Our opening segment scheduled for 10 minutes.
I told you I don't do that.
Still funny to me. Is Samoe Joe coming down to ringside, pulling out a ladder, climbing up and grabbing the briefcase. Why has nobody done this before?
I still want someone to either A, take the briefcase and just like steal it and hide it somewhere before the match even happens, or someone run in during the match that's not a part of the match, like in this case, like have Big Cass run in or something, or Reigns or someone, Reigns or someone like that who got screwed out of like getting into the match, and just steal the briefcase and just hold on to it.
R-Truth.
Yes, R-Truth. There we go.
Totally fit him.
That would.
But anyways, he talks biblical aspirations of the ladder, talking about Jacob's ladder and the fact that it was the stairway to heaven. Some man could talk to God. Your mileage may vary depending on your religious beliefs. This is not the show to get into that, and frankly, we don't have the time to do so. However, Samoe Joe then does the same thing Big Cass does and threatens Daniel Bryan's family. Well, needless to say, Daniel Bryan is not going to have this.
Nope.
They get ready to have a brouhaha when Big Cass and his crappy new theme song interrupt. Cass comes down and talks about the fact that neither one of them is going to be getting the briefcase because he'll be facing Samoe Joe once he's medically cleared. And if you didn't know, he is medically cleared, hitting Samoe Joe with his crutch, throwing Bryan into a ladder, clearing the ring, and standing tall. Eventually, that leads to the obvious for this to lead to. Tonight's main event of Samoe Joe versus Daniel Bryan gets turned into a triple threat because Big Cass ruins everything. And that will be your main event a little later on in the show. Liz, your thoughts on the opening segment?
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you so
You're
very much
welcome.
for that prediction last night. In retaliation to what I predicted, which we'll get to in a little bit, of giving me the most horrible triple threat match we have seen in a while.
The multi-man match strikes again.
Ugh. It was alright. I mean, it was for me. It was crap. I didn't enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie. I did not enjoy it at all. Probably because of the addition. Not that it was a triple threat match, but I could care less about Cass. I've never cared about Cass.
See,
I didn't like it. I didn't like it.
well, we'll talk more about the match once we get to the main event, because I'm actually okay with doing this here because it saves Samoa Joe versus Daniel Bryan in a singles match for a bigger situation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and the segment was awful. I didn't enjoy the segment. Once it got past, Joe, once Cass came out, it was crap.
Brandon, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean,
Princess may not be part of the show.
I liked the beginning of it with it just being Joe out there and like his biblical references and everything. It was much better references than Alexa Bliss managed to attempt to pull off a couple of weeks ago. But him pulling down the briefcase and all of that was fine. But then once it got to, Daniel and him out there, and then once Big Cass came out, then it very quickly fell off the cliff.
Okay, since you guys have already done it twice here, if you want to get their thoughts on Raw, feel free to listen to last night's episode of the Wrestling to the Max Raw review, available on many of these same affiliates, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, coming soon to Spotify. I keep saying that. It keeps eventually going to happen. I don't know when, but eventually. If you want to hear me go off on Monday Night Raw using some very un-W2M friendly language, check out the Raw reaction.
I may just have to give that a listen now.
Yeah, that one was vulgar even by our standards. I think I gave the show a 2.
Oh, God.
Dude, I knew I loved you for a reason, Harry.
Shinsuke Nakamura proves that he can walk backstage and count at the same time, rattling off 10 numbers before making his way down to ringside for his singles cup. I popped myself with that. Anywho, backstage we see Paige yet again run into Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. This leads to a match being made for later on in the evening, as Mandy Rose will take on Asuka. Mandy was 24. Our opening contest, scheduled for one fall!
One fall!
I had to get that off my chest. I feel better. Is Shinsuke Nakamura taking on Tye Dillinger? And at 8 minutes and 48 seconds, another one that I have to get off of my chest here, Kinshasa! As Nakamura picks up the victory. A little bit surprised that Dillinger got to look as competitive as he did here. We haven't really seen Tye on television in ever at this point. So him kind of standing toe-to-toe with Nakamura for as long as he did came off really surprising. The big coup d'etat of this match here is the post-match where Nakamura yet again hits another Kinshasa standard edition, this time to the back of the head, and then counts the last man standing stipulation that he and AJ will be having at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Brandon, your thoughts?
Like you said, I was happily surprised that they actually allowed Tye to get some offense into this. I'm assuming they're going to continue this whole thing up until the pay-per-view, but it's funny seeing Shinsuke every time someone's down starting the 10 count himself and, really, pushing this last man standing match. So I liked it. It, for what it was doing, it was good. And I liked seeing Tye actually get some offense out.
Liz?
Yeah, same. It was nice, seeing Tye. It was an interesting match. Nakamura, cracked me up with his. At first, I couldn't figure out what the hell why he was counting to 10, but then I didn't realize who he was taking on right away. So I was only half paying attention. But yeah, it was a decent, it was a decent match. Nakamura was, entertaining in his non-wrestling, moments as well as his wrestling moments. Same as you guys. It was nice to see Tye get some work in.
Styles gets interviewed backstage because if you paid money to see him wrestle tonight, well, it sucks to be you, Raleigh.
Probably got a dark match.
Well, you're killing my moment, Brandon.
Just saying.
And basically states that while Nakamura may try, come Money in the Bank, the last man standing will be phenomenal. Our next segment is a dance-off scheduled for one dance.
Go ahead, Liz. This is yours now.
Okay.
You take full credit for this one.
Yesterday, at the end of our Raw review, I was saying that to Brandon that since we had the horrible barbecue yesterday, and SmackDown always is kind of a mirror image of what's to Raw, that we'd get something that was equally as horrible. And there we go. The dance-off. I'm so sorry, people. I'm so sorry.
I like the dance-off. Seeing Lana twerk as such, I was okay with this.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
I mean, it's not wrestling, but at the same time, what would you rather see? Lana dance or Lana wrestle?
True.
Okay, but here's my thing. Lana's actually a very... They referenced it a bit, but it's downplayed. Lana is actually a very talented dancer. She trained at a school that if you're not talented, you're not getting in.
But it was done in order to more personify their characters and to set up our mixed tag team match for next week. True. Because apparently the mixed match challenge is still a thing.
No, I know that. I'm just saying she's actually a lot more talented dance-wise than people will rightly, will assume because of how goofy they have her dance.
It was 4 minutes long. I'm not going to bitch about 4 minutes.
Yep.
There was so much worse shit on Raw last night that's two within a very short time. Sorry, Sean. There was so much worse stuff on Raw last night that
Don't worry, I said it a couple of times myself last night.
I can't be upset about it.
I'm not, upset about it or complaining about it. I think for the most part, people kind of assume that they got away from that, nonsense or whatever. Well, necessarily like it's not the worst thing they've ever, had on there. I'm a little curious of why. Why can't I think of his name? English is her partner next week, and not her husband, but whatever.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. You would think it would be like husband and wife against husband and wife, but...
90% sure that match already happened in the MMC. Not to mention, this is to further the rift between Aiden English and Rusev, I think,
True.
too. So
yeah.
We'll get to that once next week happens. Backstage, Miz continues to be awesome, this time going full-born Karate Kid on pancakes with ninja chop skills.
If only he was actually doing it properly and like kind of referenced Karate Kid and like done like wax on wax off or like sand the floor.
Our next contest scheduled for one fall.
Really, no response to that.
Well, no. My only response to that is I thought more of like the game like Fruit Ninja.
Okay.
As I load that to play on my phone once we're done now. Thanks for the idea. Our next contest scheduled for one fall is 6-man tag team action where the New Day and specifically Big E gets his win back following last week's episode of SmackDown. He pins The Miz with the big ending to defeat Miz, Sheamus, and Cesaro at 12 minutes and 7 seconds. Liz, this was a whole lot of your favorites in one match, and damn if they didn't tear it up.
Dude, it was like Lizzie, we're giving you this match. And I was like, thank you, WWE. Yeah, no, it was, it was a good, I don't think there's anybody in that match that I don't really like, so that gave it, a couple of points extra, but it was a really good match. I mean, the six of them really, really delivered. There was some really great, spots in it as far as I'm concerned. It was one of the more entertaining matches that I've seen in the last couple of days.
Yeah, it was a good, solid match. I definitely like how they're using Xavier a lot more, and he's really showing that he's been improving in the ring. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago that he's been improving a lot in the ring. And yeah, it was just a good, solid match, and it's nice to see New Day get the win. It was funny seeing them point to each other and be like, "Are you taking it? You take it? You take it?" And still keeping this mind game up of who's gonna be the man in Money in the Bank.
Jimmy C is of the opinion. For those who don't know, Jimmy C used to be the producer for the Raw reactions. My buddy that I've known for a long time. It's a stage name. He doesn't like people knowing his real name, so I'm just going to use his stage name here.
Okay, an hour later.
He seems to be of the opinion that the New Day is going to win Money in the Bank and then freebird the case.
I would be perfectly fine with that.
I would not.
Brandon, didn't we mention that the week or something?
Yeah, we did.
I'm pretty sure we talked about it.
I dislike this.
Okay, I don't have a problem with it because I think ultimately it would lead to their breakup, which I have a sneaking suspicion is something coming, eventually, or at least to loosen their alliance, just a little bit. I wouldn't mind it. I think it would not last necessarily that that long, but out of all the things they've done, it's not the worst thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be perfectly fine with it as long as they did it properly. You could have someone, one guy run, you could do so many things with it, and it would be a lot of fun to see, especially with how good the New Day are.
The issue that I have, though, is that you're putting almost kind of comedy inspirations onto the Money in the Bank briefcase, which is something that I don't think needs to happen.
Maybe
so. I think.
Go ahead, Liz.
Sorry, I don't think necessarily it's comedy. I think it would be actually a good way for them to get away from some of the more stupid comedy pancake, crap that they've been doing, because they weren't always strictly so over the top with their comedy, and in the Freebirds themselves weren't, necessarily such a a comedy thing, and I think they could totally pull off freebirding it if done properly, and if they go back to a bit more of their serious ways.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not so much this year, but definitely if they decided to wait until next year to do this, they could definitely pull it off, because the briefcase, while yes, it has this prestige and everything, especially after last year, you're gonna have to have a way to kind of revitalize it, and having New Day freebird it and do something different with it, could add a little more intrigue into it.
I don't buy it. I don't like the idea behind it, and frankly, I think there are other people who could do more with the briefcase than having the New Day squabble over it. Feel free to call me a fuddy-duddy if you want to. I'm okay with it, honestly. It is what it is. Anywho, moving back into the show now, a backstage interview with the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, ends up having them interrupted by the Bludgeon Brothers as they proceed to want to liquefy bodies. R. Kelly would like to have a word. And now that I've officially burned any and all goodwill that I may have built up over the years of co-hosting these shows, Carmella joins commentary for our next contest. It is women's division action scheduled for one fall.
One fall.
Notice Liz was so disgusted she had nothing to add there. Nope. She didn't even take the time to scold me. She just ignored it completely. I don't
Yep.
know. I think I'd have preferred being scolded. You taking the disappointed parent aspect of it just makes it even worse. Anywho, one fall. Sees Asuka taking on. I know you did. I'm getting back on track here. Sees Asuka taking on Mandy Rose. Asuka proceeds to tap Mandy Rose at 5 minutes and 33 seconds with the Asuka lock, despite Sonya Deville trying to jump Asuka before the match. Carmella actually comes off as the star of this match because she handles herself very capably on commentary. That being said, she's getting tapped and nothing flat by Asuka at Money in the Bank.
Yep.
Liz? I think that's the only option. You can't have Carmella. You can. I don't know. I think she's going to lose, quickly, and I think that's the correct way to go.
The only way that I can see them having Carmella retain the title without any issue behind it is if she does what I've been saying a heel should do at some point, which would just get them nuclear heat. And that is just simply take your ball and go home. Every match, bell rings, she rolls out of the ring, grabs the title, walks out.
Yeah, but eventually they're going to put her in a match stipulation that kind of counterbalances.
Well, exactly. Eventually it leads to a Hell in a Cell match.
Yeah, I don't think Carmella's the kind of worker that can handle a Hell in a Cell match at this point in her career.
That's true. I'll give you that. But with someone that they can, I would love to see them do it.
Speaking of the women's division, Charlotte and Becky are bickering backstage because apparently bitches be crazy, even though they're friends. And Paige sneaks around the back of the screen. Don't think we didn't see you, Paige! And then comes in to interrupt the ladies by telling them that it's tea time for PCB. What she means by that is that Charlotte and Becky will face each other in a singles match next week on SmackDown. In addition to that, we get the previously mentioned mixed tag match that we talked about earlier in the show.
Again, another sign of SmackDown copying Raw, making a ton of matches for next week.
Sin Unico tries to approach Andrade Cien Almas backstage. Zelina Vega is having none of it. They'll apparently be facing soon. Thankfully, Almas is away from the jobbers. Although technically he is wrestling Sin Cara, so maybe he's not.
Yeah, really.
Bang.
Wait, let me
Our
ask
main
you.
event.
Wait.
Go ahead,
I'm sorry. I have one question. Who was the guy in the mask?
Sin Cara / Unica.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
because did he grow or something, or did I miss something?
The original, he's the second Sin Cara. The original Sin Cara is like 3 inches shorter, but they think we don't notice. Also, this Sin Cara has a tattoo on his shoulder that the original Sin Cara didn't.
Yeah, no, I thought this was like a third Sin Cara because he looked so much bigger than everybody else. But anyway, that's what I thought.
Maybe he was just wearing his lifts.
Maybe he just looked so much taller. Maybe it was the angle or whatever that I was like, wait, we have another Sin Cara? I thought it was like a third or fourth one, to be honest with you.
Or it's possible that Zelina's that short.
That's probably it.
No. Even standing next to the whatever his name is there, he looks
Andrade.
so much taller. Yeah, him, whatever.
So you're obviously in Brendan's camp when it comes to Almas. I actually really like Andrade.
No, I am reserving the right to make judgment. If you had listened to us while you were away, you would know that, but whatever.
I had other things to do. Sorry, I had 3 wrestling shows to call in 3 days. Kind of busy.
Some stupid excuses there, but whatever.
I got paid for those. How's that? Hi, Sean. How you doing? Anywho.
You wound me, Harry. You wound me.
Our main event, scheduled for one fall, is the aforementioned triple threat match, where Samoe Joe advances to Money in the Bank, choking out Daniel Bryan with the Coquina Clutch at 21 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay, so wait, let me get this straight. Well, time out. Let me get this straight. In a match that Big Cass is a participant,
Excuse me.
Daniel Bryan's eating a submission loss. Okay, technically he didn't tap. He was choked out regardless. My point being that Cass was right there.
I just have to say two things about that. There are two reasons for that. One logical, and the other not so much.
Oh, this should be Rich. Go ahead.
The first, which one do you want first? The logical one or the not so logical?
Let's see if it's actually as logical as you're claiming.
The logical explanation is because, in spite of the fact that, you know, this time around, I would at least hope people wouldn't believe it as much. Well, it's not as consistent and as realistic as it was last time. But they are still, you know, it seems to be the theme nowadays of every babyface, and especially Daniel Bryan, has to be treated as, oh, he's the big underdog, he has to overcome the odds, he's gonna lose most of his matches, yada yada yada.
You know, the sad thing is Brandon's not entirely wrong there.
Yep. You want to hear the other not-so-logical reason? I think you could probably guess this one.
Because they don't want Bryan to succeed?
No. Nothing to do with Bryan this time around. Because...
Are they
they're protecting Big Cass because Vince McMahon loves him some big boys.
No, they're not, and here's why.
BS. I call BS.
Can I make my prediction as to why Bryan actually took the loss in this match?
Okay.
Because despite the fact that Cass was added to it at the beginning of the show, they still stuck with what could have been an original finish, Joe via chokeout. This gives Bryan something to come back with against once he's done with Cass, because apparently Bryan and Cass has to continue. Because God knows we needed that to happen. But it gives Bryan something to move forward into. And frankly, I wouldn't be surprised to see Joe be a viable threat to win the Money in the Bank contract. The thought of Samoe Joe terrorizing AJ Styles with the Money in the Bank contract is money, pun intended.
Yep.
Liz, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, another reason that they might have, and this is going to be an extremely unpopular opinion or thought, and I really don't care, but they might have had Bryan lose or take the pin or however the hell he lost, is so that the internet wouldn't bitch that he was robbed. I mean, they're still going to bitch that he was robbed. I could care less about if he's in a match or not. I really can. I could care less about it. We know this about his glorious, comeback. I was thrilled he took the loss. I hate Cass, but I was thrilled he took the loss. So I don't think they're protecting Cass unless Cass is actually. I mean, he can't even tell that he's actually coming off a real injury because he did wrestle. So I don't see them as protecting Cass. I don't even see Cass as being around that much longer because he sucks. And there's no teaching that. But
we've said that about other big men, though.
No, I just don't see it. So I don't know. I mean, Joe was the only one that should have won this match, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. Oh, everyone knew that it was going to be Joe to win it.
No, Joe's been pretty screwed over a few times too, so you can't really say that.
Well, the reason why I say that isn't because of Joe. It's because they've been pushing this whole Cass versus Daniel feud. I'm surprised they didn't go about it in a way of Daniel and Cass, going at it in the center of the ring, and Cass getting the upper hand or Daniel getting the upper hand or what have you, and then Joe just rolling in from out of nowhere and putting the coquina clutch on.
That is exactly what happened.
Oh yeah, you're right. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
That's fantastic attention you're paying there, Brandon. Bravo.
Sorry, fair enough.
Good grief. Okay then. That officially wraps us up for the May 29th edition of Tuesday Night Smackdown. Scale of 1 to 10, Liz.
4.5.
Okay. Care to expand?
I was I was bored out of my mind. There was nothing in this show that I really enjoyed. I mean, other than the 6-man tag match, and that's mainly because at least half of the people in the match were 3 people that I really like and that I follow, pretty intensely. There was the only other highlight for the show was for me seeing it, and I mentioned this I think on last week's show, well the week before since we didn't do it last week. Sorry, how Paige is growing into the role, because I initially thought she was going to suck. But she's really, proving herself. She's really doing well. Those were the 2 highlights for me. There was not, for me, one redeeming factor to the show.
Brandon, same question.
I'm gonna give it a 7. The opening segment was, the beginning of it was good. The other parts not so much, but the opening segment wasn't bad. The Shinsuke Tye Dillinger match, like we talked about, was surprisingly pretty good for what you expected between those 2. Some of the other things, that 6-man tag match was good. The dance-off I could have done without, but at least it didn't drag out like crazy, like you said, Harry. It only lasted a few minutes. The main event was solid, and it was, like you said, it was a good way of protecting Daniel while still having Joe win by not having him actually tap out, having him pass out instead. So it's a good way of protecting him, saying, he didn't actually quit, so yeah, it was a solid show.
I'm right there with Brandon at a 7. I actually really enjoyed this SmackDown, coming off of what I thought was a god-awful episode of Raw. Maybe it's the fact that we had just did Raw yesterday, and it was as bad as it was. Yeah. SmackDown seemed significantly less offensive to me.
I'll give you that. May impact some of, but even without that, it was still a decent show.
The 6-man tag was excellent. Asuka got to look dominant, and Carmella got to definitely prove that she's coming into her character. She's still not great in the ring or anything, but she's at least starting to develop a character and able for me to tell her and Liv Morgan apart now. The main event I actually thought was pretty good for what it was. And while I don't necessarily care for the fact that Bryan took the loss in a match that Cass was involved in, keeping Bryan out of a ladder match is probably for the best for all parties.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can have Bryan take down Cass once again at Money in the Bank, and then hopefully move on to something bigger and better going forward, i.e. possibly another match with Samoe Joe. Maybe if a certain awesome superstar wins Money in the Bank. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, predictions.
Maybe have them compete for the briefcase?
I'm thinking something a little bit more specific than that. We'll do our predictions on the Go Home episode.
Okay.
But there's stories to be told with Bryan that don't involve him having to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and he's better off not involved in the match, in my opinion. I thought that the dance-off segment was inoffensive, and I thought that the opening match, or the Shinsuke Dillinger match, was kind of weird in the way that it was put together, and that Dillinger got to look as competitive as he did. But it was a nice surprise, too, because Nakamura got a good victory over somebody who looked competitive in the contest there. It's not just, we're obviously pushing Shinsuke to get him ready for AJ. No, Tye got his stuff in as well, and they actually went back and forth a bit before Shinsuke proved that he was the better wrestler.
Yep.
This was, in my opinion, a rock-solid version of SmackDown. As a matter of fact, I'm going to use that as my one-word review here, but I'm going to hyphenate it in order to cheat a little bit. Rock-solid. Liz, one-word review.
I was disinterested. I really was. I mean, I can't disagree with what she was saying. There was a lot of good stuff. I just don't think the show really did anything for me, So I was disinterested. Disinterested is my one-word review.
Brandon?
My one-word review, because it affected a couple of matches. Not the whole show, but Swerve.
Brah. Here's what we're going to do, bruh. They're going to expect one thing, and then we're going to do the exact opposite, bruh.
Yep, precisely.
Bruh. Sorry, had a moment there. I'm good. Yeah. So that's going to wrap it up for SmackDown Live here. We'll be back with 205 Live here in a bit. You can listen to myself and Brandon Biskobing on the kickoff Wednesdays coming back in the beginning of August. I think August 8th is our tentative return date for the kickoff. Brandon and Jason Teasley also have something coming up as well, if Brandon wants to tell everybody about that too.
Yes, this week, I believe we're doing it on Wednesday. We're going to do the post-draft finally, the post-draft review and, kind of a quick little preseason look ahead for the fantasy football season with Fantasy Football to the Max.
In addition, you'll be happy to know, Brandon, I am in September of 94.
You've got a little over a year.
It's actually a little less than a year.
Oh, okay, right, August.
I think I just finished fall. No, it was September of 94, but I just finished Fall Brawl 94.
Oh, okay.
So I'm more than halfway through September. So I'm getting there, I promise. How the War Was Won will be coming to the W2M network. Much
Soon.
The same way we are coming to Spotify. The answer to that is eventually. And with that full circle, for the co-hostess with the mostest, Miss Liz Pugliese, and Brandon Biskobing, I'm Harry Broadhurst, thanking you for listening to the May 29th edition of the Wrestling to the Max SmackDown Live review. Back at you with 205 here in a few moments.